Deep within the tropical jungles of South America lies a dark and hidden world. A vast, dangerous landscape, where only the bravest explorers dare to venture. Home to 17 of the most venomous snakes on Earth, jaguars lurking in the shadows, and piranhas wading beneath murky waters, the Amazon has earned a reputation both terrifying and mesmerizing. The conditions are so extreme that many who entered were never seen again. Yet, that never stopped others from trying. Since the 16th century, when the Spanish conquistadors first set foot on the continent, tales of magnificent cities overflowing with gold have ignited both obsession and tragedy, luring countless explorers into the unforgiving depths of the rainforest. Among all those legends, one name shone brighter than the rest: El Dorado, the mythical city of gold. A place said to glitter like the sun itself, promising eternal glory to anyone who found it. But in the Amazon, greed and ambition often came with a deadly price. So, did El Dorado ever truly exist? Or was it nothing more than a mirage born from human desire and madness? That's the question that still echoes through the ancient trees of the jungle. And before we continue deeper into this mystery, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because the next stories will take you even further into the hidden past of humanity, where truth and legend are almost impossible to tell apart. For centuries, a glittering promise tempted explorers and dreamers alike. A vast city bathed in gold, its streets reflecting the sun, statues guarding ancient secrets. This promise whispered names: El Dorado, Z, Petiti, each a siren call to vanish into the deep green of the rainforest. It always seemed to sit just beyond the next river bend, always within sight, yet forever unreachable. In 1924, Percy Fawcett answered that call and set out. The British geographer and explorer, steady-voiced and resolute, believed that maps held pages crumpled by time and wind, pages that could be smoothed and read. Fawcett's expedition into the Amazon became as legendary for its quest as for its tragic end. In 1925, the last note he sent home contained fierce tenderness, instructions to his wife, words of courage, and the chilling final lines about following a river into the unknown. After that, he vanished. Tales like his fed centuries of imagination and expeditions. Men followed rivers, cut paths through the jungle, succumbed to fever, were struck down by tribes defending their lands, were taken by piranhas or pierced by arrows launched out of the dark canopy. The forest demanded its toll: heat, humidity, disease, insects, and solitude. Picture ships full of hope and men staring at the horizon. Then imagine the silence. The jungle returns. For a long time, modern science agreed with the legends, at least in one respect. It seemed impossible that large, permanent urban populations could thrive deep in the Amazon. From the 1940s to the 1970s, field work by archaeologists like Betty Meggers and Clifford Evans built a stark picture. The soil lacked nutrients and lost fertility fast under cultivation. The tropical ground, despite its lush canopy, appeared unable to sustain the agricultural surpluses needed for large cities. Meggers coined a phrase that would define a generation of thinking: the counterfeit paradise. The rainforest looked fertile, but imposed rigid limits. That diagnosis stood for decades. Without stone for monumental architecture, and with meandering rivers complicating permanent routes and infrastructure, the Amazon fit neatly into a model of small, dispersed villages arranged along watercourses. Encyclopedias and textbooks echoed that baseline. No great civilizations here, only people adapted to a light, scattered life. Yet not everyone accepted that view uncritically. Scholars such as Donald Lathrap reminded us that ceramic traditions, river networks, and cultural continuities in the upper Amazon suggested a more complicated story than the counterfeit paradise allowed. Still, the consensus held sway for a long time. Everything began to shift when researchers started looking down through the canopy, not just with eyes or cameras, but with pulses that could pierce vegetation. New technologies and local knowledge would rewrite the narrative. Below the trees, the ground held clues invisible to those who walked the surface. The surprise began with the soil. Local farmers and 19th century naturalists had already noticed patches of very dark, exceptionally fertile earth. Initially, it looked like a natural oddity, but careful excavations revealed a human signature. Charcoal, pottery fragments, fish bones, and organic residues, all assembled in a porous, carbon-rich dark matrix that retained nutrients. This was not natural dirt. It was made earth. They called it terra preta, black earth. It was anthropogenic soil, engineered to be long-lasting and fertile. Terra preta meant possibility. Where this dark matter existed, crops could thrive for many seasons. In a landscape where soils typically exhausted quickly, these pockets held fertility over decades and centuries. Orchards, gardens, and fields sustainable in place for long stretches. But the most dramatic revolution came when archaeologists and geographers put LiDAR scanners above the treetops. The laser pulses shot down, and where leaves offer gaps, echoes returned to form a map of hidden terrain. Strip away the vegetation in software, and astonishing patterns appeared. Straight roads, rectangular platforms, circular ditches, and channels. What had looked like a green ocean revealed itself to be a complex, designed surface. In valleys like the Upano, excavations and mapping exposed an organized grid of streets, thousands of earthen platforms and open plazas, more than 6,000 platforms identified in some areas. These sites show a kind of garden urbanism, cities woven with fields, terraces, and drainage systems. People built with earth rather than stone, shaping mounds and raised platforms to keep houses and fields above floodwaters, and designing landscapes that worked with water rather than against it. In western Brazil, accidental deforestation exposed another layer of history: geoglyphs. Thousands of hectares turned up over 450 geometric earthworks, circles, squares, straight ditches, and aligned roads, etched into the soil. Their purpose remains debated: ritual centers, gathering places, boundary markers. But they testify to large-scale landscape engineering carried out over centuries. Common threads of practice recur: raised fields that protect crops during seasonal floods, canals and berms that convert floods into sources of nutrients and water, orchards and managed forests that produce reliable yields of fruits and nuts, fertile anthropogenic soils that support repeated cultivation without rapid depletion. These findings force us to rethink what it means to inhabit the Amazon. People here did not merely survive. They designed environments that enabled durable lifeways. These discoveries reshape the idea of urban life. Western models often expect cities to be dense and built from stone with sharply defined boundaries. The Amazon shows another possibility: low-density urbanism spread across the landscape, interwoven with gardens and forest patches. These were real cities, built on different principles. They had hierarchy, specialization, and infrastructure, simply expressed in earth and wood rather than stone. The Amazon suggests that urbanity can take many forms. Why had so many of these patterns vanished from the view of explorers and colonists? The answer is brutal and simple: disease. With European contact came smallpox, influenza, and measles, pathogens to which indigenous populations had no immunity. Mortality rates in some regions soared to catastrophic levels, sometimes wiping out 80% or more of a population in a generation. Whole communities disappeared, roads and canals ceased to be maintained, orchards returned to the wild, and plazas faded into forest. When later explorers moved inland, they often found scattered villages and assumed the region had always been sparsely populated. In reality, they walked among landscapes devastated by epidemics before they even arrived. That loss massively reworked the map of human presence across the Amazon and helped cement the empty forest narrative for much of the 20th century. But traces remained, and technology began to read them. LiDAR soil analysis and precise dating turned shadow into form. Places once thought empty revealed a cultural landscape: roads, canals, platforms, orchards, and engineered soils. These were not accidental features. They were deliberate designs, evidence of sustained ingenuity. Take the Upano Valley as a clear example of organized habitation and resilience. Platforms and streets, there show planning that integrates housing, agriculture, and circulation. The city breathed with flood cycles. Water rose and carried nutrients. People managed this dynamic with raised fields and canals that turned floods into agricultural assets. The architecture used earth and wood, but the design was sophisticated. Those who lived there were not primitive. They were clever and dexterously adapted. Elsewhere, geoglyphs speak to coordinated territorial projects and ceremonial landscapes. They require labor, planning, and long-term maintenance. Their presence across wide regions indicates a tradition of large-scale landscape engineering sustained over generations. These societies shared agricultural strategies, diversified orchards, systems for preserving and storing food, fish management in varsy environments, and cultivation in fertile anthropogenic soils that allowed repeated harvests. Knowledge accumulated across generations. Selections of species, techniques for channel construction, terrace building, and soil enrichment. This was not a set of accidental practices, but culturally transmitted expertise that made long-term habitation possible. Modern evidence, therefore, reveals grander things than mere survival. It displays environmental creativity. Ancient Amazonians did not conquer the forest so much as partner with it. They shaped the land to yield abundance while maintaining a balance with floodplains and forests. Their urbanism was a choice, an alternative model of complexity built in tune with local ecological rhythms. Tragically, much of this knowledge was disrupted sharply by contact-era epidemics. The demographic catastrophe severed cultural continuity. Without the sustained communal effort to maintain canals and terraces, the engineered landscape degraded. Pathways silted, fields returned to forest, and elaborate systems receded into the green. Detectable only through modern tools, they became shadows. Archaeology must now work to assemble fragments carefully. LiDAR reveals patterns, radiocarbon dating, and soil stratigraphy anchor them in time. Each new site nudges our understanding. Many places previously labeled as simple villages show signs of intricate coordination that signals stone-less cities. Urban lives built mainly from earth and wood that vanished without leaving stone monuments. This new understanding expands the definition of civilization. The Amazon holds evidence of multiple urban pathways, ways to organize dense social life, achieve food security, and create sophisticated infrastructures without replicating Mediterranean or European models. Recognizing that diversity matters reshapes both scholarship and policy. In the end, the Amazon story leaves us with hard questions. How many cultural landscapes have been erased by disease, conflict, or environmental change? What knowledge was lost along with those people? How might those past systems inform modern responses to climate change and food security? And perhaps most urgently, can understanding ancient Amazonian practice help design better ways to coexist with living ecosystems today? If this account has surprised you, if imagining cities woven among trees changes how you see the world, click the like button. That small act helps share discoveries and raises new questions. The jungle still carries its memories. In soil layers and old canal bends, the signature of ancient peoples remains, waiting for patient science and partnership with local communities to recover their voices. Learning from these ancestral ways could provide real tools for modern problems: water management, crop resilience, and landscape design that works with seasonal floods rather than against them. The Amazon teaches a double lesson. It is a dynamic and moldable environment capable of supporting complex societies, and it is a partially charred book, much of its content erased by contact and time, but enough remains to rewrite whole chapters of human history. LiDAR and soil studies are a call to re-examine long-held certainties and to listen carefully to what the earth tells us. There remain entire sites yet to be mapped, orchards and canals to date, and oral histories to connect ancestral techniques with sustainable practices today. The intersection between science, technology, and indigenous knowledge is where hope and research meet. When archaeologists, ecologists, and local communities collaborate, the past becomes a tool for renewal. By bringing this story to light, we remember that the Amazon is not only a repository of biodiversity, it is a storehouse of human ingenuity. We lose the romantic, static image of an undisturbed wilderness and replace it with a deeply human landscape, one of people who designed, built, farmed, and lived at scale, only to have their imprint obscured by forces often beyond their control. At the close of this chapter, the jungle asks for humility. There is no need to mythologize the past or to weaponize it as proof of some cultural supremacy. We must read the soil, heed indigenous knowledge, and apply lessons with care. The ancient Amazon has much to teach about resilience and the design of durable human systems in partnership with living ecosystems. Lessons that the modern world urgently needs to hear. The story of societies destroyed by forces beyond their control is a pattern we see worldwide, and it's not just history. Last week's video explored how whole cities were swallowed by catastrophe. Today, the same kind of loss is unfolding before our eyes in the Amazon. Deforestation and large-scale agriculture are erasing archaeological sites as quickly as nature once hid them. Earthworks, ancient canals, and layers of soil rich in history face permanent destruction. That's why many researchers argue archaeology must be a tool for conservation. Protecting the sites means protecting the forest. Cultural heritage and ecological heritage are two sides of the same living memory. With every LiDAR flight and every handful of sieved earth, clues emerge that the forest was never empty. Fields, streets, traces of complex life. And the more we uncover, the more we realize how much can still be lost if we don't act. What former gold seekers only hope to find, stories, we are now revealing with technology and scientific air. Those stories are priceless. We close this episode with a mix of wonder and urgency. We have exposed fragments of the past, yet the forest still keeps many secrets, mysteries that patience, technology, and collective will can bring to light. If this discovery moved you, don't stop here. In the next video, we'll show an Amazonian site that seemed doomed and, against all odds, returned the voices of a lost people. You'll want to see how it happened. Subscribe to the channel and tap the next video. The continuation of this journey is already waiting for you.